Bubsy 4D is a thing, and you know what? It's not bad. Yeah, so on a weekend where a lot of people were playing Forza Horizon 6 or Lego Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight, I decided to pick up the new Bubsy for the surprisingly low price of £16.75. I just wanted a new 3D platformer to play, and I definitely got it. Funny thing is, this is my first ever Bubsy game. I know the horror stories about the previous games, but I've never actually played them myself. This one looked alright though, so I dived right in. If you don't know anything about it, it's the sequel to Bubsy 3D, which is considered to be one of the worst games ever created by humankind. Bubsy 4D is not like that. It was developed by Fabraz, the people most well known for Demon Turf and Demon Tides, which are very stylish 3D platformers with great movement tech, the latter of which came out in February this year. I haven't played them myself, but I hear they're great. I do want to get around to them eventually because they just look so cool. Fabraz basically took what they'd accomplished with those games and put a Bubsy skin over the top. There are a lot of movement options, including triple jumps, long jumps, hovering in midair, and midair leaps, and they can all be chained together in different ways. It feels smooth and satisfying in a way that I was not expecting given the series' legacy. The camera can be a little finicky though. Look at this wall jump section. What's going on here? To be fair, the camera is fine 90% of the time, but then you run into situations that could be polished a teensy bit more. Bubsy 4D is structured like any other classic 3D platformer. You explore each level, collecting yarn balls and blueprints, and there's a golden fleece at the end. I think the level design is fun. It gives you lots of chances to use that cool movement tech, and there are branching paths to encourage exploration and replayability. Also, Bubsy can inflate himself into a furry ball. Sure, he can roll along at high speed and crash into enemies like a bowling ball. My one major complaint is that it's just so damn short. There are 15 levels in the game, which means that a first playthrough might take you around 3 hours. Demon Turf and Demon Tides apparently take much longer to finish. I do get it though, because that's Fabraz's own IP and they probably wanted to put more work into it. Also, Bubsy 4D is incredibly cheap for a modern game, so they have priced it accordingly, although it isn't that much cheaper than Demon Tides. But it's cheap compared to things like Donkey Kong Bonanza. Bubsy 4D does have a story, by the way. The Woolies, which are Bubsy's traditional enemy, have invaded his home planet once more, kidnapping a bunch of sheep. But then time passes and the sheep return as cyborgs who end up stealing the golden fleece. They're called Barbots now, and there are 3 main leaders, all of whom have boss fights at the end of their worlds. The boss fights are pretty good and have a level of difficulty that isn't too easy or too hard. It's not just Bubsy though, his niece and nephew tag along, both called Terry, but spelt slightly differently. There's also Oblivia, which is a heck of a name, and I had no idea who she was to Bubsy until I looked her up. Apparently she was his love interest in the pilot of a cancelled animated show. Okay, well she sure isn't his love interest here. I don't know what her purpose is in his life at all, considering she's constantly doubting him at every turn and seems to hate his guts. She also gets his name wrong constantly, but I think that's because she's hard of hearing. You can see she has a hearing aid, which is a nice touch. And then there's this grumpy inventor Virgil, whose main purpose is to give Bubsy tutorials and also doubt him at every turn. Look, I know Bubsy can be annoying and he's constantly making quips, and the whole bit is that everyone hates him, but it did get overbearing to the point where I ended up just wanting to leave this guy stranded on a passing asteroid. I think the only one who shows even an ounce of positivity towards Bubsy is his nephew. But even then, he and his sister spend the entire game ripping him off by running a shop and making him pay precious yarn balls and blueprints for extra outfits and skills. There are a lot of new skills here though, which is great. I wasn't as fussed about the outfits, but there is a Bubsy 3D skin, nice, and one called Hedgehog Style. He's naked. Each world has a different theme, so the first one is styled around wool and the second is formed of papercraft materials. I like the art style overall. It's not my favourite thing in the world, but it's unique. It's something that I can say is very Bubsy from what I've seen of the series so far. Oh yeah, I should say that the music is quite good too. It sounds really funky, like it's come straight out of the late 1990s or the early 2000s. And as a 90s kid, I appreciate that. Okay, is Bubsy 4D the greatest 3D platformer I've ever played? No. Is it the best 3D platformer this year? Also no. But the levels are good enough that I had fun playing them, and despite the characters being overbearing, there is a fun vibe to the whole experience that's quite unique. The fact that it's so cheap means I can easily recommend it to anyone who likes 3D platformers, provided that they're okay with only having 15 levels to complete. For those of you who like time trials, those do exist in the game as well. I didn't really play them myself because I'm not a massive fan of time trials in general, but the fact that the option is there is great for the people that do enjoy that stuff, and I know there's a lot of you out there. So yeah, good job Fabraz. I'm looking forward to Bubsy 5D, which is a sentence I never expected to say in the year 2026.